Hey, I want to tell you about Ticket IQ. It's a great time to be a Cleveland fan. All sorts of Cleveland sports coming up, and you need to get your tickets. Ticket IQ is the smartest way to do this. The Browns have another home game coming up. Playing the Chargers, we hope for another win. We hope for a 2-win streak after taking down our division rival, the Ravens. You can catch some discounted tickets from Ticket IQ to go to playoff Indians baseball. And obviously the Cavs are making a comeback. I believe that they're going to make some noise in the East, and you're going to want to see them live. So you want to attend any of your next games for 5% off. Visit Ticket IQ. We're going to have our links for a 5% discount on your next ticket purchase in our iTunes description and on our Twitter. So that's at Brownie Podcast on Twitter. You'll find us at Brownie Sunday Podcast on iTunes. So go ahead and download the Ticket IQ app and use the promo code LPG5 for 5% off your first order. And you'll also receive further discounting with our Cleveland Sports Talk discount affiliate link. Ticket IQ is your smartest ticket search, offering the largest and most diverse ticket inventory for live events. All tickets are guaranteed with 100% buyer protection, providing a safe and secure ticket purchase for any type of live event. That's right, including the Browns, the Indians, Cavs, Buckeyes, Blue Jackets, concerts, the WWE, and more. Whenever you find a ticket listed as a low price guarantee, you'll know that that's the lowest price for a ticket on the market. So visit Ticket IQ. Get your discounts with us. Go ahead and find our discount links, again, in our iTunes description and on the Twitter. Cheers.
Brownie Sunday, wake up in the late afternoon. Call Rod Bluhm just to see how he's doing. Yo, what's up, Rod? Hey, Chad, what's happening? You thinking what I'm thinking? Cleveland Sports Talk, man, it's happening.
Hello and welcome into the Brownie Sunday podcast on a Monday. It feels so much better on a Monday after a big W. We're here with Rod Bluhm, my co-host, Vice President of Cleveland Sports Talk, and special guest, his brother, Jeff Bluhm. How are you guys today?
Hey, great, Chad. How you doing?
I'm awesome. Good to be talking to you guys. I think I'll title this this podcast "The Bluhmin Onion." Is that okay?
I guess.
Yeah, because we've never heard any Bluhm references in our lifetime.
Never happens. It's better than a Blum reference, I would say. So,
as we're currently recording, it's 9:36 a.m. I've only had a cup of coffee, I think. Need a little bit more, and that's my best pun of the day so far. So we're starting off good. It just shows that we're feeling good, right? So obviously, 12-9 win over the Ravens yesterday in overtime. Joe Flacco's record coming into the game was 17-2. He has won against the Browns 17 times, only lost twice coming in. Obviously, that's changed. And he had 27 touchdowns to only 12 interceptions coming into this game. Obviously, that changed. We really slowed him down in this game. This was a classic, gritty AFC North battle between the Ravens and Browns with fog coming off of the lake. And the Browns take it in overtime, 12-9. And the Browns, you guys, have experienced every possible game outcome in the first 5 games. It's insane. Week 1, the tie. Week 2, a loss at regulation. Week 3, a win in regulation into that Thursday game. Week 4, a loss in overtime. And Week 5, a win in overtime. And this is the first win on a Sunday in 37 games coming into the day on Sunday. So just a wild ride for Browns fans. I know you guys were at the game. I think you guys did a little tailgating too. So as we usually do, Jeff, we kick off the show with what are we drinking, and maybe you guys had something special at tailgate. And also just after that, share your experience. Just lay it all out there. How was it being together at this game at such a huge win?
Well, Chad, I have to tell you that I'm not really accustomed to drinking beer at 9:30 in the morning. But
Rod is.
Rod's a veteran.
Right.
But we did tap into the keg of Miller Lite during the tailgate. We felt sort of obligated.
Yeah.
But I think as far as what we're drinking, that was more out of necessity than out of desire.
It's not what I would normally drink. It's kind of what was there.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, so I mean, it was okay. We had a few beers, and they had a lot of macaroni and cheese where we were. They had like a macaroni and cheese contest where a lot of people brought mac and cheese, and I think we each tried 4 or 5 different kinds of mac and cheese, and it was pretty enjoyable. It was fun. I don't know. That's the first time I've ever been at a tailgating event. I think that's true for Jeff as well. So we're not exactly used to the party in the morning thing. So we went. It was enjoyable. But the day was really for me, it was about the game. And I thought we had great seats. We were in the upper deck in the 500 section, but you could see everything really well. You could see the whole field. Maybe you couldn't always tell exactly which guy had the ball, but I mean, you could figure it out eventually. But as far as the whole day goes, it was really an excellent experience, and especially like we said, because of the win.
Absolutely. I picked up a 6-pack just because all of these fall beers are coming out and they're so fun to enjoy. And I actually recorded the game. I had a lot going on in the morning. Tried to keep off of Twitter and not see try to veil my eyes from what had happened so I could really break down the game and really enjoy it. Obviously, I heard the win. I forgot to turn some notifications off on my phone, so I saw the final score. But that's not a bad thing. And so I didn't do the morning drinking, obviously. I got to come home later on, crack open one of those fall beers from the 6-pack, and it was a Duclaw. I know Duclaw dropped some stuff off at your doorstep, right, Rod? They're in Dayton?
They did, yeah. They're probably my favorite brewery because of that.
They're your favorite brewery, and I don't know if you remember, but they are a brewing company out of Baltimore.
Yes.
So
now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Boy, that's drip.
So thank you, Baltimore, for the win, and thank you, Baltimore, for Duclaw. I had Duclaw's 31 pumpkin spice lager, and it was as delicious as that win, let me tell you. It was so fun. So love that you guys were at the game. I'm sure you guys were going crazy for the win.
Yeah. I was going to say we actually got to go out Saturday night and have some real beer.
Uh-huh.
So I just want to talk briefly about that.
Yeah.
We went to a place called Garrett's Mill in my brother's town of Garrettsville.
Okay.
And I tried a flight there of, I think I had 5 different beers in it, 6 little glasses total. And my brother got one of their beers there as well. So kind of want to give a shout out there. They had, let's see, I would say my favorite was probably the Edelweiss, which is the Hefeweizen, kind of right up my alley as to what I usually drank. So I enjoyed that, but they also had an Irish Red, a Kolsch, and I'm trying to think, they brew their own beer, so those were all made there. And then I had a stout that's made elsewhere in that flight. So that was pretty enjoyable. A little better than the Miller Lite. I'm gonna pass it over to Jeff and let him tell you about his beer.
Yeah, so I had what's called Dizzy Deer IPA. As you can imagine, out here in Garrettsville, we're a bit rural, so that's kind of a play on words with the local hunting population. But this is a 5.8% IPA. The description is dry hopped with local Cascade hops, presenting a floral and citrusy aroma, distinctively hoppy with a medium body, slightly sweet and a mildly bitter finish. Well, I don't necessarily get all that from it, but I thought it was an enjoyable beer.
I like it, and I resonate with you. I spent the last 3 years before I just moved up to Cleveland in Ashland, so there was a brewery I was always hitting up called Uniontown, and like that, Rod, they were just brewing their own stuff on site, and they were also kind of a farm-to-table restaurant, so really cool stuff when you're in a city like that. You get your own hometown spot that you can always hit up for what they brew on site. So that's really fun. Let's move into the game here, if you guys don't mind. I'm sure we want to roll right into it and just break it down. Let's start out with you, Rod, and we'll move to Jeff. Who do you guys give a game ball to after this game?
I'm giving a game ball to Jabril Peppers. He may not have made the big play or any, plays that were transforming as far as the game was concerned, but he played probably his best game as a Brown, and he was just always around the ball, breaking up some passes, making some big tackles. He was also up at the line of scrimmage, making some big plays. He was just hitting guys hard all day long. So it may not show up in the stats, but I thought he had an excellent game, and he looked pretty good in the return game too. He looked a lot more comfortable than I think he has really up to this point in his career. He's kind of looked like we've talked before. He's looked like he's kind of lost back there as a return man half the time, and he looked more comfortable, and he played a really solid game on defense. I just really liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, I think I mentioned to Rod several times during the game that Peppers was really having his best game. He looked really good out there. So I would like to give him a game ball too, but I also want to give a game ball to Denzel Ward. I'm usually pretty skeptical of rookies, as my brother knows well. But this kid just made the plays, and he continues to do everything as advertised. Whether it's getting interception, creating turnovers, or taking the other team's number one out of the game. He's just doing it, and I gotta give him credit. As a high pick, a lot of expectations, and he's living up to the hype.
Yeah, to speak to Peppers there, you guys just both talked about him, and he was really busy all over the field. He had 3 tackles, 2 passes defended. I agree with you, Rod, that this has to be his best game as a Brown. He looked a lot more comfortable. He was able to play up to game speed. It looked like up to this point to me, as I've watched him every game since he's been in the league, he's never been able to catch up to NFL speed. It seems to be not slowing down for him. And finally something clicked in this game. And speaking of Dizzy Deer, what did you guys think of him really knocking Mark Andrews clean out of the game pretty much? And that he knocked him pretty dizzy. Did you think he hit him in the head, or do you think that was a clean hit in the end zone?
Oh, there's no way we could tell from where we were sitting, honestly, if there was helmet to helmet. But yeah, we just saw him make, big hit after big hit in the game. So
no Jumbotron showed it clearly to you guys there.
I don't think we saw that. I don't remember seeing that either.
Yeah, they kept replaying it here on the TV, and I couldn't tell. It looked like a clean hit, maybe up against the shoulder. But it just spun him out because he wasn't expecting that kind of a hit, and Peppers just really laid it out on him. So I think it was clean. Obviously, I don't think there was a call there, so nobody saw anything like it was. It wasn't targeting, but maybe up near the neck area if it was anything. But really, really knocked him out. Dizzy Deered him. We're all going to stay on defense here for the game ball. I'm actually going Joe Schobert. It's a little bit out of the box, but same thing, kind of a same argument as Peppers. He was just all over the field. He was busy. 2 passes defended, huge forced fumble, and 5 tackles. I mean, this guy's just a cheat code. You could see him really being the cerebral leader of the defense again. He was tapping linemen on the thighs, showing them, hey, or speaking in their ear, hey, this is where the ball's going. And every time, it was like Schobert knew exactly what was coming, and that lineman was able to adjust and actually make a play. So even from the times he was not actually making a tackle, or he really wasn't in on the play, he was helping somebody make a play. And I really love watching him be the leader on that defense. And so I give Schobert the game ball. You guys think that's a good choice?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially the play he made, batting the ball down at the line of scrimmage. I think that was probably on a big third down play. maybe when he did that.
Yeah.
Can't remember for sure, but I mean that was just a really great play. Another thing about Peppers that you may not have seen at home, but it seemed like after every series walking off the field, he was going after one of the Ravens or they were coming over to him and they were just talking. So I mean he is the guy who's going to be talking crap to the other team and he's backing it up. So I think that's a good thing, especially against the Ravens.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but I also just feel like he was in a good position finally. Greg Williams positioned him for success today. I didn't see him ever really deep. When he was covering a receiver, it was in the end zone, and he was actually able to run with a receiver. He really had a good coverage on Michael Crabtree at the end of the game there. Crabtree could have gotten the ball, but Peppers played as good a coverage as you can play for a safety in the end zone. Did you guys see that? Did he ever line up deep like the Angel we've seen before?
I don't think so. I think Randall was deep.
Yeah.
And that was it. I don't think we ever saw two men deep.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's where he needs to be. So great. Well, let's move into our next segment here. Thriving or Diving. Thriving or Diving is brought to you by Thrive Fantasy. If you don't know about Thrive yet, this is the brand new way to play all your daily fantasy sports. Baseball contests are in the lobby right now. The football contests are fantastic. Different featured contests every week for cash payouts. Basketball daily contests on the way. And man, this is so much fun because you get to merge really two fun ideas. If you like to go, bet in on the over-under on teams or individual players week in, week out, or if you like to obviously assemble your fantasy lineup, a different fantasy team every week, week in, week out, then you get a fresh take on both of those things in Thrive Fantasy. It's so much fun. So you assemble your team by not just drafting players, but actually picking the over-under on a specific statistical category on the individual players that you want on your team. So say that you think that Duke Johnson is going to go for over 50 yards and a score. You can bet the over on that, put Duke Johnson in your lineup, and if he scores that, if he does over that 50 yards and a touchdown, then you actually get the fantasy points allotted to that category on your team. Or you can bet against it and also get fantasy points. Obviously, if you're wrong, you don't get the points, but that's why you got to pick the right props. So go ahead and prop up today with us. Live to Thrive. Join the Thrive Fantasy community with us at Cleveland Sports Talk and Brownie Sunday Podcast today. You're going to find our link on our Twitter at Brownie Podcast, also in the iTunes description, but it's really easy. It's a bit.ly link, bit.ly/Cleveland Sports Talk will get you a guaranteed match up to $10 on your first deposit when you become a Thrive Fantasy community member. Join today, and cheers.
My Thrive would be the kicking game for the Browns. The ability to make the game-winning field goal in overtime and get the Browns a big win. And my dive would be the kicking game for the Browns. The inability to make extra points. It just,
kick a field goal in regulation.
Yeah,
to
kick
win.
a field goal in regulation to win. That 50, whatever it was, 54, 55 yarder. Sure, that's not a gimme at all, but he had plenty of distance on that. He just missed it by a lot left. So it would have been great if he could have made that kick.
Yeah,
so,
he missed it by about a whole field goal post.
Yeah, he missed it by a lot. So he made the kick in overtime, which is great, but I still feel like we're in a spot where kicking is going to be a question mark, and it's going to be week to week, every game going forward. I hope he's not too comfortable. I hope he hasn't bought a house here yet.
Or rented one.
Yeah, or rented one because, it just feels like we're going to see more turnover in the kicking game. I still don't know how that kick in overtime even made it to or through the post. It's as ugly a kick as I've seen.
I think there were about 70,000 fans in the stadium wanting a kicking tryout on Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
Everybody felt like they could do a better job than this kid.
Yep.
Yeah, we could give him some kind of game ball for the ugliest game-winning kick, winning kick we've ever seen. Maybe like a Nerf ball, a game ball. Yeah,
right.
It was such a question mark for me. This guy didn't really have a great track record. He's a soccer player, and Cairo Santos was out there on the market, and he was a Kansas City Chief. So I thought for sure that Dorsey was going to go after Santos and bring him in, and I was going to be thrilled with that. He's a talented kicker, solid guy, but yeah, he went to play somewhere else. I forget which team picked him up, but I was bummed to see him go elsewhere. I thought he was going to be a Brown, and I think you're right. I think there's going to be turnover here. If I'm any sort of leadership on the Browns right now, I'm trying to say let's get Joseph out of here and try somebody else myself. Who knows if they'll do that, but we'll see in due time. Jeff, what's your thrive or dive?
Well, I'm going to shift gears here, Chad. Rather than beating the Browns up anymore, I'm going to say that my thrive is the Cavs offense. I know it's only a couple of preseason games in, but sans number 23, I have to say that the team was pretty enjoyable to watch. Sharing the ball, people moving without the ball, and putting 50-plus points up by halftime in both games. This team has the potential to surprise some people and actually be fun to watch for once in probably the first time in about 4 or 5 years.
Were you guys in that
on the
section?
dive side? I'm gonna go to the third sport here in town. What is up with our pitching? Number 2 pitching staff in the league in the regular season, and they suddenly can't find the strike zone. They better get their act together today.
Yeah, they've got an afternoon game today. And speaking of the Cavs, were you guys in the section with J.R. Smith?
I did not see J.R. Smith at the stadium.
So apparently they were at the game, and they were just going absolutely bananas up in a higher section. Him and Jordan Clarkson, Seti, Osman, and who else? A couple others. But, yeah, they looked like they were having a good time. I actually I had a fantasy basketball league last night. We have a keeper league. We get to keep 5 people, so there weren't a ton more players to put on your team, so I really dropped a lot of money on Colin Sexton and Osman. Just really hoping that they'll hopefully be keepers there in the future. And I think you're right. I think they're going to surprise even this season, the first season with LeBron on the Lakers. I think we're going to surprise over here in the East. Speaking of diving, what was the worst call that you guys saw in this Browns game? We had 10 flags before the Ravens had their first flag, I think in the fourth quarter.
Well, I mean, we can talk about individual calls, but just the fact that the Browns had the first 10 penalties called against them.
Yeah.
It's just sitting in the stands. I mean, we're watching and you could see penalties. You could see blocks on the back from the Ravens on kicks. You could see, there was a time when their right tackle obviously flinched. A flag wasn't thrown. It's just the fact that anytime you have an NFL game and the penalties are that different, from team to team, something's up. Something's just not right. For me, I thought, I don't know which the worst call was. I mean, Jeff and I talked about the
spot, maybe.
Yeah, the ball spot was horrible. The Jarvis Landry play, that's kind of debatable. I think Jeff thought that it was incidental contact. I mean, I would probably have to watch it about 10 more times to have an opinion. But to have your guy knocked down like that. And not have a chance to even try for the ball in such a big spot in the game. That for me, that was a big deal. I think that's probably the one that the fans in the stands went most crazy over, whether it was a bad call or not.
Yeah, I would say on that one, Chad, I think you can't be hoping that something good happens at that point in the game. And I think the officials sort of felt like we're not going to let this drive continue on a hope. There was a pick play where the receivers were crossing, right? And it just so happened that the two defenders got tangled up with Landry. You couldn't necessarily see that from every point in the stadium. I mean, I saw it on the replays and it kind of crystallized for me, but yeah, I don't like to normally complain about officiating. I think it's part of the game, and I hate the whole concept of reviews, and I wish they would just let the people on the field determine the outcome. But yesterday's officiating was really terrible. I have to say it. They looked like the game got away from them, where they were having a difficult time deciding, how to call things. And I wonder how much of that is just because they're always worried about the replay official looking over their shoulder. Just go out there and do the best job you can of calling it even both ways.
They were doing that, they were making their calls, and it got to the point where they were calling everything against the Browns, and the crowd really started getting pissed off. So everybody's booing them every time they came out to make a call, as to what the penalty was, and you knew it was against the Browns every time. So they started huddling up every time they threw a flag. Why does that happen? You threw a flag, you don't know why you threw it. You don't know if you should have thrown it. You have to know. You can't be an official and say, well, gosh, I threw this, but darn it, I just don't know if I should have done it or not. I mean, these guys have to be decisive. They have to be fair. And it feels to me like in the NFL, flags are based on reputation and win-loss record too much. It just things have to change to where they can just look at the game, call penalties. And I know a lot of things are judgment, like holding calls, but man, they have to get this right. And you're hearing more and more people like Mike Tomlin and other people speak up that the officiating is really a problem this season.
And I think part of it too is, are they trying to make statements with certain calls? Because, we see new rules implemented every year to try to protect players and so forth. And I think the officials, are probably under the direction of the NFL looking for certain places to call things, to make examples, out of plays, out of players, versus just going by what they see, and it's slowing down the game, to the point of, you're sitting there just waiting for them to make a decision, and B, it's affecting outcomes. Games are being won and lost on, bad decisions, and even when we go to replay, we're still getting it wrong. So Rod and I were talking about this yesterday. If we're going through this whole exercise and we're still getting it wrong, why are we doing it?
And they certainly could have won last week against the Raiders, and they just couldn't make it through the gauntlet of bad referee calls. Luckily, they made it through this one. They grinded their way through, but guys are absolutely right. A lot of bad calls in this one. I think the one that I got the most upset about that you didn't bring up there could have been intentional grounding from Joe Flacco on a crucial, I think, third down. And even Baker Mayfield went up to the ref and started chiming in his ear like, man, that was clearly intentional grounding.
It was.
The announcing on the TV said that Javorius Allen was in the vicinity, but every time they replayed it, it didn't make it past the line of scrimmage, and it was not anywhere near Buck Allen. So I don't know. I really felt like that could have been grounding. Luckily, we still got the win, but things like that need to be called when they're just clear as day in front of the officials, and that's why fans are getting upset. That's why you're hearing coaches go absolutely bananas in their media spots right after the games, and we haven't seen that really in the years past. So hopefully something changes.
And I think that's just another spot where they're trying to protect the quarterback.
Yeah.
We saw it last week with the fumble that wasn't called. We whistled the play dead. I mean, the referees are getting ahead of themselves. I think sometimes, in terms of making the call.
Right.
That's a really good point. Well, I'll close this out here with the Thrive or Dive. My Thrive is just the overall culture change with the Browns. You heard Baker Mayfield after the game talk about how this isn't the same old Browns. I'm still on the fence with Hugh Jackson. I'm not sure how quality of a leader he is to this Browns organization. But the players seem to be rallying around him, and he's definitely a part of that culture change, it seems to me right now. I feel a lot more confidence after seeing this game with Hugh than I have in any game so far this season. My dive, though, is how Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley are still using Duke Johnson. He got a little bit more involved in this game. I understand that you can go with the hot hand. Carlos Hyde didn't have a ton of numbers. He didn't put up a ton of numbers in this game, but he was the hot hand, and he definitely looked athletic, and you wanted to keep handing him the ball. He was getting first downs for you, getting chunk yardage. But still, we've got to find a creative way to use Duke Johnson. You didn't bring him on and give him this contract again to use him the way you are. He only touched the ball 6 times again in this game. He rushed for 35 yards on 5 attempts, and he had 1 reception for 7 yards. And with our receiving being as, middle of the road as it is right now, Jarvis Landry still looks phenomenal. He didn't have a huge game, but he definitely looks like a safe place for Baker Mayfield. But other than that, losing Josh Gordon, you've got Callaway with a case of the drops, and he didn't have a big game at all in this one. And you've got David Njoku, kind of middle of the roading it there as well at tight end. You've got to have somebody that can catch the ball, and to only throw it once to Duke Johnson in this game is just not going to do it for you. So I feel like they really got to utilize him in a special way going forward and really find ways to beat defenses with Duke.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the thing is that it's a totally different look for the offense coming off of this game versus coming off the Raiders game where they put up 42 points. You know, when you're scoring 42, you kind of feel silly worrying about the distribution, who's getting the ball and who's not, because you're scoring. You're like, well, it doesn't matter. Just, keep doing what you're doing, and it doesn't matter who gets the ball, they're going to score. But when you put up 12 points, you got to start thinking again about which guys really need to get the touches. And I think Duke definitely needs to get more touches. He was really big in the overtime. He had some really nice runs there, and and really helped out in getting the victory. So but I love Hyde. Hyde looked. I mean, he just was. His legs were churning, man. He was out there busting his tail.
He looked good,
and he looked really good. So I think Jeff and I both like Hyde out to always start the game. To be the primary workhorse, but Duke definitely has to get more touches, and I think you need more sets. I'll keep saying it. You need more sets where you've got Duke and Hyde, or Duke, Hyde, and Chubb, all on the field at the same time. Give the defense something to think about.
Yeah, I don't know from a scheming standpoint, how that affects defensive coverages. I mean, more guys you put in the backfield, fewer guys have to drop into coverage and putting more pressure on your rookie quarterback. Look, it's a real luxury to have quality depth in the backfield finally. Some of the guys that we've seen lately that just seem to go up and bounce off their offensive linemen. We've got guys that actually can have a little bit of vision and can spot a hole and hit it. And that's what you see with Carlos Hyde. I mean, he did it at Ohio State. He did it at San Francisco. He's hitting holes, and that's turning into positive yardage. I think if I'm Hugh Jackson or Todd Haley, I'm riding that veteran presence. I think there are a lot of ways that this offense can grow, and they can incorporate Duke out of the backfield. Like you guys are spot on with the weakness in the receiving core. You got to find ways to use Duke as a receiver. I'm not sure that giving him touches in the backfield is going to, necessarily get you better results or the same goes for Chubb than what you're already getting with Hyde. So we just have to kind of watch this offense develop over the rest of the season. I think there's a lot more that they can and should do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, I might even be wrong. It could be going the route of a Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman route that the Falcons have. and the Falcons pay Tevin Coleman pretty well, and he gets kind of those same numbers as Duke Johnson. So maybe it's working the way that they want it to, and they're riding Carlos Hyde in that Freeman role, and hopefully he stays healthy and continues to churn his legs, as Rod said there, and continue to show off in these games upcoming. But, with that being said, let's talk about the offense here as a whole. Let's break it down. Offense led by Baker Mayfield. He went 342 yards for a touchdown and an interception early on in the game, 23 rushing yards. This is the first ever rookie quarterback on the Browns to beat the Ravens. It's taken us 19 years, guys.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about, especially when you think about how many rookie quarterbacks we've started over that span of time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we know what the overall record is against the Ravens. It's obviously not good. It's probably, I would guess it's the second worst record, against the Ravens as compared to the pitiful record against the Steelers. That's probably, if we look it up, that's probably pretty accurate. I thought Baker played well. But we have to be realistic. I mean, the 342 yards, that's in almost 5 quarters. So give him credit for doing a lot of things right, but the defense won this game.
Yeah.
The defense won this game. Baker did what he had to in overtime to get him down there. So I give him a lot of credit, but Baker didn't go out and just blow this Ravens defense away and outscore them. So I think you just got to give credit where it's due and just be excited about Baker and what's coming. But I think we're going to see a lot better games than this from Baker.
I would agree with that. I mean, I honestly, I'm warming to Baker Mayfield. I'm not a fan of the idea of playing a rookie quarterback, particularly with such a young offense. But the kid can make the throws. What I saw at the game was a kid who, when he stands in the pocket, makes the right play and executes the throws in a high percentage. So that's what you want from your quarterback. I think when he gets a little happy feet and starts dancing around and trying to create things, most of the time things don't go so well. But you could say the same thing for Joe Flacco. He's been in the league for 9-10 years, right? And when you put pressure on him, the ball starts to do a lot of bad things. So Baker looks good. We're 10 quarters in to his career now, and he's doing some great things with a fairly young offense, a really young offense, right?
Right.
And he's doing the right things to keep you in the game, which is all you can really ask for from your quarterback on a team that is still, let's face it, still developing and learning how to win.
Oh, certainly, yeah. 10 quarters in, we've got to see a lot more of Baker Mayfield to really make a decision. But I really think that his decision making is quite a high point for me. I mean, even a highlight there was seeing him scan down the field to the left for so long, and Desmond Harrison did a great job of blocking for him again. Guys, an athletic tackle. Thank God we've got him blocking for a rookie quarterback and filling that left tackle spot well. He got a few seconds, maybe 4 or 5 seconds in the pocket, had plenty of time, and then finally looked right to a wide open Jarvis Landry near the out of bounds marker, and got some good chunk yardage on a play. And it was just amazing to see his decision making, because you got nervous seeing him. It looked like he was only locked on a certain guy down the left side of the field, but then he went through his progressions and found Landry all the way on the right side. That's huge for me to see a highlight like that for a rookie QB. But yeah, you're right, Rod. This defense won this game for sure. I mean, they grinded it out. You can tell from our offensive stats that it was not our offense that was winning this game. David Njoku caught 6 balls for 69 yards. I think that's his best game so far this season. So at least he didn't have a case of the drops this time around, but not a huge game. Jarvis Landry, same amount of yards, 5 receptions for 69 yards. and it was Rashard Higgins who really was the high spot for our offense, which is crazy. 3 catches for 66 yards and that touchdown from Baker Mayfield. Well, Antonio Callaway continues to have a case of the drops. He struggled for only 3 catches on 5 targets for 22 yards. Looking at this receiving core, you guys, how in desperate need are you of a Rashard Matthews, or even looking back at Des Bryant?
I don't know, Chad. I mean, this is still an offense that put up 42 points against the Raiders, and we know the Ravens are a tough defense. I don't know if I'm pushing a panic button yet at receiver. Jarvis Landry, he can have a bigger game than he had. Hopefully Njoku's going to keep, getting better as the season goes on. I haven't heard an update on Hollywood Higgins to know the extent of his injury. I'm hoping he's okay. But honestly, his performance didn't surprise me. You think about it, he and Baker got to play quite a bit in preseason. So I think there's like a little bit more of a chemistry there between the two of them. So I really hope he can be back. I don't know. I think Dorsey is always going to look at upgrading the team. So I don't have any problem with him bringing Rashard Matthews in and seeing if he's better than somebody he already has. But I'm not pushing a panic button on the offense at this point.
Yeah, and Higgins who subbed in for him, Derek Willis, at the end of the game, were the highlights of the offense, really, with Baker Mayfield, who were his preseason buddies as he only ran with the second team.
Yeah, I think you'd probably feel better about giving Willis a little bit more time if needed. If you don't have the confidence in Callaway to have him out there as much, give Willis a little bit more time. Willis and Higgins, if he's able to go, there's a good chance that Baker feels more comfortable with those guys out there and the timing that he has with those two receivers.
I would agree. I mean, this is, again, an offense that we thought was going to feature Josh Gordon and Corey Coleman. These guys are young. They're getting to know each other. Rather than taking those touches away from them and giving them to somebody else, I think I'd rather see this team develop with the receivers that we have, and try to develop a little bit more chemistry. And, God, I hope Antonio Callaway learns how to catch the ball eventually, because he can certainly get open. Yeah. You just need to keep working with those guys. And I think, going into next year, if receiver is still a problem, then we target somebody in the draft, or, we look for another way to add an impact guy to the roster.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach. I think we've got to look towards the draft and really develop these guys, especially seeing Higgins and Willis, who had preseason success with Baker, and he really looked their way a lot in preseason when he got the chance. You let those guys develop, you let them kind of rise up the ranks, and hope that Higgins is healthy. Happy birthday to Higgins as well. It was his birthday yesterday, so he had a big day on his birthday, touchdown on his birthday. Yeah, so there's that, and obviously Antonio Callaway has the talent, but man, we really do need to see him catch the ball. It was unfortunate to see him just get a couple of catches, and they were really just kind of moving the chains catches, which is not who he is. We talked with Jake Burns last week about how this guy can be the Deshaun Jackson of our team and take the tops off the defenses, and we need that as our wide receiver too. Jarvis Landry's got to be our receiver that moves the chains and plays that, between the 20s kind of receiver, and Callaway make him take the tops off the defenses there. I agree with you guys. Maybe they'll bring in Rashard Matthews. I think that would be the higher chance than Dez. I think they've already pivoted away from Des Bryant and that decision to bring in the 30-year-old who hasn't been on the field and has maybe not in football shape, and kind of messes with the chemistry of a Baker Mayfield and the development of our younger offense. It's kind of at the point where you just let this, we're at that point, Jeff, where it's like the young offense. We just let it be what it is and let them develop this year and see how many wins they can get, and be way more prepared for next season.
Yeah, we got guys like Damian Ratley who hasn't even seen the field yet. You know, I mean, I'd probably rather see him get a shot than somebody who, is just kind of hanging out there because nobody's picked him up.
True. Yeah, and then we'll pivot to the running game here a little bit and talk that. I mean, Nick Chubb had a huge game last week when he had 3 carries. Here he only has 3 carries for 2 yards. He broke for a big run, but it was called back. And obviously the Browns went with the hot hand, which was Carlos Hyde, which his numbers don't necessarily show a huge game. But like you guys said, his talent, his athleticism, his bowling ball of a running back kind of style came through in this game. He rushed for 17 times for only 63 yards, 2 receptions for 14 yards, but it seemed like he had a way bigger game than that, than on paper.
It did. I mean, just sitting and watching it, Jeff leaned over to me at the game at one point. It was probably third or fourth quarter, and he goes, well, Hyde's got at least probably 100 yards by now, doesn't he? And I'm like, probably. And we looked over at the scoreboard, and he had like 60. So he just seemed to keep getting extra yardage on the plays, instead of getting stopped at the line of scrimmage or for a 1 yard carry, he would, bust it out to 4 or 5 yards and that. So it was just really hard running, tough yards, but he looked really good. He earned every yard he got yesterday.
I agree. I mean, he was a man running the football. I think this team, much like the NFL, is just a little bit too pass happy. But let's face it, guys, we came into this game with the number 1 rushing offense. When was the last time we could say that? I have to go back to the Marty Schottenheimer years when, we really committed to the run, right? And it's nice to have that stable of backs. I think we are too quick to get away from running the ball, and the vertical passing game opens things up, sure, but this has to be a team that can knock you off the line and get that yard when you need that yard. And so I still think they need to be committed to the run game and stick with it during the game.
I like it. Let's close out the show here in a bit. We'll move to the defense for now. Defense led by Denzel Ward, it seemed. Game ball from Jeff there. He had the block kick, an interception, and 3 passes defended. Speak to that a little bit more. What'd you see in Denzel Ward? Has he quieted all the haters who didn't think that he was worth the number 4 pick overall in the draft?
He's still a young kid, right?
Yeah.
Give him some time. But I like his moxie. I like the fact that he takes on the challenge of, the other guy's number 1. All that other stuff is a bonus, blocking kicks. I mean, who would think that this kid would be in there on the field goal team, right?
No kidding.
But he's looked great. There's probably going to be some ups and downs with him too. But I like what I've seen so far. And again, I was shocked when they drafted him. I'll be honest. I sitting there at number 4, I thought there were about 10 other ways they could have gone. But he's been rookie of the week and he's backed it up. Right. So I got to like that.
You got to feel he may have another rookie of the week award coming. I don't know what anybody else did this week, but yeah, I mean, it was a heck of a game. And yeah, I don't think I was the same way as Jeff. The draft, obviously I thought they were going to go a different way, but they got the best corner in the draft, and we've said that before, but this time it really looks like
maybe the best player in the draft.
Yeah, like this kid's the real deal. We had a good feeling he was going to be a good player, but corners don't typically develop real fast. It takes him some time to catch up to NFL speed, and he's gone up against, some really, really good receivers, and he has not looked bad. Nobody's made him look bad in a game yet. I mean, you got to be realistic. That everything favors the offense right now. So nobody's going to completely shut down the other guy's receivers. It's just not going to happen. But Denzel Ward has looked excellent. And yeah, I think, as much as I question the draft when it happened, Baker and Ward definitely look like great picks right now.
At the two hardest positions to break into the NFL.
Yeah, true.
Very good stuff. Yeah, I mean, John Brown has been having himself a season for the Baltimore Ravens. Clearly the best receiver and favorite receiver of Joe Flacco so far this season. And Denzel Ward gave him a tough time. He did not get to break out at all in this game. And speak of color rush jerseys, man, Denzel Ward looked like a flash of the color rush. He looked like a flash of that brown and orange. You couldn't even see his actual figure when he rushed around the corner and blocked that kick. He looked like an absolute flash of just color. And so I loved seeing that athletic ability. And we talked about Joe Schobert and Jabril Peppers a little bit earlier, how they were all over the field. Myles Garrett, we haven't talked about him yet. The stats won't show it, but to me, he gave this line and he gave Joe Flacco hell with his disruption, even though we really see a bunch of zeros on his stat line.
He's another guy who was all over the place. I mean, yeah, Jeff pointed out to me at one point where Myles Garrett came completely around the line, and I think he made the tackle on a running play. Yeah, from the other side. I mean, he's a guy who's always going to be, causing problems for the offense, even like you said, even if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. It's just how it's going to be.
The thing that jumped out for me about Myles Garrett was, we got into the stadium a little bit early, so we were there for player introductions. And Myles Garrett was the second to last player introduced. Christian Kirksey was the last player introduced. The crowd went insane when Garrett was introduced.
More than anybody else. I mean, twice.
By at least twice. Else, yes.
At least.
Yes. And it just tells me that the fans appreciate what this kid's doing. He's got the potential to be the next LeBron James in this town, I think, as far as, fan loyalty, fan excitement. Mm-hmm. He's playing a position where you don't necessarily see numbers week in and week out. But, boy, if I'm an opposing offensive coordinator, I need to know where this guy is on every play because he's just going to wreak havoc. You're absolutely right, Chad. I mean, he is the disruptor of this defense.
Absolutely. I like that. He could be the next LeBron for us Clevelanders. And a younger guy on the other side we saw a few times and make a few big plays, especially one clutch pass deflection near the end of the game. You got to love Jannard Avery and his success and how fast he's coming along as I think it was a 5th round pick, maybe 6th round pick in this draft.
Yeah, I think he's a 5th rounder, and I'm going to kick this to Jeff because I love Jannard Avery, but Jeff's probably been a bigger advocate of his than even I have, so I'm going to let Jeff talk about it.
I don't know if you have a category for man crush on this podcast, but
absolutely.
Jannard Avery, he's my man crush. I never was a big. Well, I never liked James Harrison. You had to be a fan of his from his body of work. Personally, I thought he was kind of a dirty player, but Jannard Avery shows all of those characteristics. I mentioned to Rod at one point during the game. I said it is going to be fun to watch this kid develop. Because he as a rookie, we keep talking about the rookies and the impact that the rookies are having. It's unreal, how impactful he is. And you don't always see him, but he's there on every play, and it just makes all the other guys on the line better. You see Ogunjobi getting free runs at the quarterback because you got Garrett on one side and Avery on the other. So he's going to be an exciting player to watch over the coming.
It's really been helpful to have him on this team when we don't know the the health of Emmanuel Ogbah week in and week out, and to have him really stepping up to the plate every week, every opportunity that he gets, and just showing off freak athleticism. What a steal in the 5th round. And I think we should make a new segment from here on out called Man Crush. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Legacy.
Yeah, that'll be Jeff's legacy. Yeah.
Yes, you made your mark. Obviously, a big man crush was not Greg Joseph. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but we thank him. Let's close out the show here in a little bit. This guy made an ugly game-winning kick, but it got us the W. And from here, let's kind of close out with the IQ test. Obviously, we do an IQ test every week now from Ticket IQ. Rod, why don't you tell us your bold prediction for this upcoming week or maybe the next few weeks regarding the Browns, and then we'll kick it to Jeff.
Well, I don't know, Chad. I'm almost thinking we need to dump this segment and do something else because I'm just really not good at these predictions. I said Nick Chubb would get 15 touches, and he got 3 again. So, my bold predictions are more hopes than anything else. So this week I'm gonna say that against the Chargers, Duke Johnson's role finally expands, and he at the end of the Ravens game, helping the Browns out in OT to get down the field where he had a couple of big rushes. And I guess we'll see with receivers what happens, but hopefully he'll get more targets, get a few more carries, and I'm just gonna go with it. My prediction is that he has a lot bigger part in the game against the Chargers.
All right, let's grade that on a scale of genius to lunacy. Where are you at with that, Jeff?
I think it's lunacy.
What a brother.
Yeah, and I'm just going by my brother's record, but I think it would be great to see Duke, have a big game. I just think he's number 3 for a reason, and we'll see where that shakes out. Probably a lot of it has to do with the health of Higgins, and that they have to work Duke into the receiving role. So we'll see.
I'm just going to go genius for you, Rod, because I love Duke, and I want to see him succeed. I want to see him get a bigger role. So I'll go genius. Then, Jeff, what's your...
Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, just to give it to you.
I do appreciate the support.
Just to give it to you. Jeff, What about you? What's your bold prediction for upcoming Browns?
Well, I'm just going to preface this by saying, I've been a Browns fan for many, many years, even, back when we had the real Browns. And I've always been a skeptic of the new Browns. So I'm just going to say that they're going to have a 3-game losing streak sometime in the next 7 weeks, just going into the bye. And the fan base in this town is going to be absolutely out of their mind. We're going to be talking about, should we be firing Hugh Jackson, during the bye week, and there will be 10,000 articles written, about how the team is off the rails, and what should we do next, and should we blow it up and start over? Look, my hope is that I'm wrong on that, and this team continues to make progress week in and week out. But I'm really interested to see what happens when there's a little bit of adversity, because I just don't think the fan base and the local media handles that very well. And just because I'm accused of being negative all the time, I'm also going to predict that somehow, some way, the Tribe finds a way to win today and extends the series to the 4th game.
So you kind of sandwiched it. You kind of went, well, this is going to be horrible, but wait for this part. The Tribe will win.
You got to throw in a little bit of good with the bad.
Yeah, I guess it's less of a sandwich and more like a cupcake. Like, here's a bland muffin take, and then here's the icing. The Tribe is going to win. Oh, man. What do you think, Rod?
Well, as much as I'd like to go lunacy on the whole batch, I'm gonna say genius on the Tribe. I think they'll figure out a win today at home and push it to a 4th game. The other part, I just don't know. You have to, in looking at the schedule, you have to recognize that the Browns are coming up, in a week or two on the toughest part of their schedule. They've got two really tough games, and going to Pittsburgh and then playing Kansas City. That even if the Browns were, even if the Browns were 4-1 right now, we would probably be expecting losses both of those weeks. So the likelihood of a 3-game losing streak is probably pretty high. That they could lose one before or after that. So I think the 3-game losing streak is probably genius. We'll see how everybody reacts. Just sitting in the stands, we were joking, that I've always seen my brother is very negative, but he could not believe the things that people in the stands were saying. The defense is practically pitching a shutout out there, and they give up a 10-yard run, and everybody's ready to just fire guys off the defense for being out of position or a missed tackle or something. It's like, come on, you guys. There probably will be an overreaction, but I don't think the Browns will overreact to the 3-game losing streak.
I actually, I'm also kind of close to genius on that, even though I don't want to be, just because I'm looking at their schedule. Because, I'll put it like this. So last week, my bold prediction was that the Browns would actually have a 3-game winning streak. So I wanted to say lunacy, but you said that they're going to have a 3-game losing streak before the bye?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I could see it, because I think that I'll still be correct. My bold prediction is continuing from last week, that they will win 3 in a row, and that started with the Ravens. So I'm almost there. I'm 1/3 of the way there, and I thought that would be the toughest game for them. I think that the Chargers and the Buccaneers are going to be they're going to be able to handle those teams, even though one is an away game in Tampa Bay. So I do think they'll beat the Chargers and the Buccaneers, so they'll have a 3-game winning streak. They'll be 4-2-1 before that Pittsburgh game. But then it's at Pittsburgh, and then you take Kansas City, who's undefeated, and Atlanta. Both of those are at home, but those are absolute powerhouse offenses that I'm not sure this Browns defense, even though they are on the verge of elite status, can take on. So I could see it happening. I'm not full genius. I'm somewhere in between. I don't know.
Yeah, it's less about when the losing streak happens than it is about the reaction to it. And I think Rod was right on that.
Yeah.
The fans and the media will go absolutely crazy. The sports writers that we have in this town, I don't know how they got their degrees, but they seem to just bait the fan base into this kind of stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Look, the 3-game losing streak should not worry anybody. It's bound to happen. We're way ahead of where we thought we'd be, where most reasonable people thought we'd be at this point in the season, right? So let's see how everybody reacts to it, and most importantly, let's see what the team does. Do they fire Hugh Jackson? They do some other knee-jerk move? Do they decide to blow up the roster again, or fire John Dorsey or whatever? Come on, let's take this plan through to conclusion for once.
Yeah.
Right on. So that's where I'm at. I'll have you guys grade mine. I say that they do have a 3-game winning streak overall since last week. They beat the Chargers at home. They beat Tampa Bay away, and I think that's going to really change the landscape of our division, because then the Bengals and the Ravens have just as difficult of a schedule, if not worse, than us upcoming for the next 5 games. The Bengals play the Steelers, then the Chiefs, then the Buccaneers. Like I said, they can be handled, but then the Saints and the Ravens. That's an absolutely difficult schedule for the Bengals, and then the Ravens, no different. They get the Titans next week. They can be handled. They just lost to Buffalo, obviously. But then the next 4, the Saints, the Panthers, the Steelers, and the Bengals. And so I'm really interested. I'm intrigued to see how this landscape of this AFC North division is going to look by that Week 11 bye that we have.
Chad, it's really tough to look at the schedule and to even take any one NFL game and try to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the games yesterday. I mean, what the Lions beat the Packers, and I know there was kicking problems, but how many people had that game circled as a win for the Lions?
The point is, you can make those predictions week of.
That's right.
But looking out 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, it's a different story.
Yeah, it's really tough. And, the Chargers are a talented team. Tampa Bay has looked really good at times. So, I mean, yeah, I hope you're right, because they have the really tough part of their schedule coming up after those two games. So yeah, I mean, if the Browns take losses against both of those teams, yeah, it's going to look pretty dismal. But, I'll stay where I was last week. I think they'll win one of those two games. I hope they win them both. But if they win one of those, it wouldn't surprise me if they come up with a win, against somewhere in that tough part of their schedule, just because that's how the NFL is. The schedule never plays out like you think it's going to. You always win some games you thought you were going to lose, and you always lose some games that look like easy wins. It's just the past 2 weeks. I really expected the Raiders game. I mean, for me, you can almost flip the outcome and the score of the Raiders and the Ravens games, and it's more like what I expected. I would have expected a higher scoring game against the Ravens and, in a loss. And I would have expected a lower scoring game against the Raiders and a win. So you just don't know. Let's face it, they are not going to go into Pittsburgh and win and then come home and beat Kansas City. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's going to be really tough. Yeah. Well, that's what I have. That's my my IQ test for you guys. Any last words from you guys, and we'll let you go.
Yeah, I have the last word.
All right.
My brother and I have been to 2 Browns games together, and the other game was, I believe, in 1980, we'll say. Okay, so it was a long time ago. Okay, but that game, the Browns defeated the Miami Dolphins in overtime on a pass from Brian Sipe to Reggie Rucker. So my brother and I are 2-0 at Browns games together, 2 wins in overtime. That's my last word.
So you can extrapolate that into someone needs to buy us season tickets.
Yes.
And the Browns will go 16-0.
They'll all be overtime games, so
They'll all be nail biters.
they'll all be nail biters. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll
It's
all
like-
be overtime.
It's like when the officials came out and the Browns went out, for the coin toss in the overtime. I'm like, and here's the rules, boys. I'm like, they know the rules. 3 times in 5 weeks. These guys know the drill. Let's just get on with it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so if somebody buy the Bluhms season tickets, we need them at all the home games, and I expect you guys to have us in nail-biting games every time you're there. So thank you guys for coming on. It's been a joy.
Go ahead.
Thanks for having me on this week, Chad. I really enjoy listening to you guys, and it was an even bigger treat getting to participate.
Awesome. Well, this has been the Brownie Sunday podcast. Cheers.